Hello students, welcome to Eduauraa. I am Priya Kumari, your mentor for Indian economy. We all are aware that people's desire are inconsistent. We can relate it with our own life. When we act as buyers, we want prices of all goods and services to remain stable. But when we act as sellers, we expect the prices of goods and services should go up. Such a happy outcome may arise for some individuals. But when this happens, others will be getting the worst of both the worlds. Now, when the prices goes up, there is both a gainer and a loser on the other hand. To evaluate the consequence of inflation, one must identify the nature of inflation, which may be anticipated and unanticipated in the other time. It means that one can predict the nature of inflation or it cannot be predicted on the other hand. So if inflation is anticipated, that is, if we can predict inflation, people can adjust with the new situation. And the cost of inflation to the society will be smaller in that case. I hope you are with me. Now let us try to understand that we can study the effects of inflation under two broad headings. The first one is the effects of inflation on the distribution of income and wealth. And the next one is the effect on production and economic growth. Now let's discuss the very first one, that is the effect of inflation on distribution of income and wealth. During inflation, usually people experience the rise in their income. But some people gain during inflation at the expense of others. Some individuals gain because their money income rise more rapidly than the prices, and some lose because prices rise more rapidly than their incomes during inflation. Thus, it redistributes income and wealth. Though no conclusive evidence can be cited, it can be asserted that following categories of people are affected by inflation differently. Now let's try to understand the concept that what is the effect of inflation on creditors and debtors. As we are aware that borrowers gain and lenders lose during inflation, because debts are fixed in rupee terms. When debts are repaid, their real value decline by the price level increase. And hence we can say that creditors lose. We can look into an example to understand this particular concept, that suppose an individual may be interested in buying a house, and for that he takes a loan of rupees 7 lakhs from an institution for 7 years. So what will happen now? The borrower will welcome the inflation, since he will have to pay less in real terms than when it was borrowed. But on the other hand, lender in this process loses. And why the lender loses in this process? Because the rate of interest payable remains unaltered as per the agreement. And due to inflation, the borrower is given dear rupees, but he pays back cheap rupees. However, in an inflation-ridden economy, the creditors chronically loses. It is wise not to advance loans or to shut down the business. To make this concept clear to you, let me take an example. Let us look at the very first case without interest rate. Let's take an example of two friends, Suman and Shiva. Suppose Suman is having 1 lakh rupees with her, and her friend Shiva is in need of monetary support. So Suman lends the amount to her friend Shiva without taking any interest rate for 1 year. Shiva is smart. And what he did? He purchased 1 kg of gold with that particular amount. Now, after 1 year, suppose there is inflation at the rate of 10%. So consequently, due to inflation, the price of gold increases. And at 10% rate of inflation, the price of gold will be equal to 1,10,000. So what Shiva will do now? He will sell the gold and get 1,10,000 in return. Out of that amount, he will return back 1 lakh to his friend Suman and keep the remaining 10,000 with himself. And therefore, from the above example, we can clearly note that inflation favors those who takes loan. In the very first example, inflation has favored Shiva. Now let us look into another case. Suppose Suman refuses to support Shiva. So what Shiva will do in that case? He will take loan from banks at some interest rate. Let's say the bank lends him 1 lakh at an annual interest rate of 7%. Again, he will purchase 1 kg gold in 1 lakh. After 1 year, suppose there is inflation again at the rate of 10%. So ultimately, the cost of 1 kg of gold has increased now due to inflation. And what will be the cost of 1 kg of gold now? That will be 1,10,000. It is obvious in this situation that Shiva will sell the gold and get 1,10,000 in return. So he will return 1,07,000 to the bank, as the interest rate of bank was 7% per annum. And he will keep the remaining amount with himself, that is 3,000 rupees. So even in this case, when the interest rate was included, who suffered? The lender suffered. And who enjoyed? The borrower enjoyed. So ultimately, it is clear that even in this case, the lender suffers and the borrower enjoys. Now suppose there is a very large interest of 14% per annum. So in this case, again, the loan amount which you took from the bank is 1 lakh. Again, you did the same thing. you bought 1 kg of gold with that particular amount which you had borrowed from the banks. After 1 year, suppose there is inflation at 10% rate. So therefore, the price of the gold after inflation will again be 1,10,000. Again, you have to pay the amount 1,14,000 to the bank. Why 1,14,000? Because in this case, the interest rate was at 14% per annum. We can clearly observe that bank's profit in this case is 14,000. The real interest rate was 14% which the bank charged. And the rate of inflation was at 10% per annum. Therefore, we can say that due to inflation, real interest rate subsidized to 4% only. Yes? Why is that so? Because in case if there was no inflation, then you had to pay all the entire interest rate to the bank. So, it is very clear from the above example, in all the 3 cases, that inflation favors the borrowers.